Hey, kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to another edition of Big Hero News. Kia ora, Chewy.
Kia ora, Pat. How we doing?
Yeah, well, I'm still actually, I got all ready to go for the show, good to go. I've come downstairs and I've gone, I might get a couple more things. So I'm still looking at the couple more things I'm going to get to load them up. But how are you? How was your night? How was your work? How's the day off? All that kind of stuff?
Oh, it was nice. Yeah, I wasn't here last night because we had kind of like a work catch-up, which usually happens when someone from head office is down. We had a very lovely meal, cheap and cheerful, at the friendly satay noodle house.
Oh, nice.
And
How was that?
It was a good time. It was a good time. They did have, let's see if I can bring this up, pad for time tap. Pat, it's your turn.
Okay. People, we were chatting last night, Chewy, and some people were going, oh, this is all so heavy. Why can't we have something, what's something light that we can throw in here? And so I said to them, oh, maybe we'll get dog cam working. And I couldn't get dog cam working, but I got a shot of dog. So this is just for people who need a break every now and again. We got dog cam working. So we got it back up and operating and put it back on. Nala. There we go.
Yeah.
You right, mate? You're right, mate. So dog cam's working now, and maybe in a particular heavy part of the show, if we're going to do a heavy part of the show, Nala will come out. Good girl. Lie down. Down. Good girl.
Oh.
And there's a little mascotty type thing. People who have been with us for a long time, there used to be a lot of talk about that dog. And there you go. And the reason that I changed it was I moved my studio kind of a meter forward from the wall, and we used to use a camera up on the wall up there to look down, and now that camera doesn't see over the desk, and I've never just really sorted it out. So this is me sorting it out. It's a semi-permanent situation that now we can do it. If you don't believe me, see, just like that. I've done it again.
So while you were padding for time, I just had to bring this. This is a piece of, I mean, the word art doesn't do it justice. It somehow transcends art into a higher place. But this hangs in the noodle house, and it's just look on it. Just look at that. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of paintings of horses with abs on them.
Getting for
but
it.
those certainly have abs.
They've got chesty dumplings.
So has every horse painting I've ever seen up until now been wrong?
Can you zoom in a little bit? Can you make it a bit bigger for us? Because your portrait on the screen, and people will be watching us on their little iPads and laptops and stuff. Just control plus. Take us in.
That's
a
bit better.
That's a bit better.
Yeah.
That's terrifying. It looks like they're all smuggling 4 bread rolls with somewhere. They've got them hidden, and they've painted them the color of their flesh.
Amazing.
I've got a couple of things to share. I said something last night, Chewy, before we talked a bit about Trump. I did a piece on Trump last night, and kind of did a couple of things. One was on his VP choice, and one is on how the right is now trying to sell this narrative that the left, the ones that have always used violent rhetoric. It is kind of adorable, actually. It's the best word I can do for it. But I said last night, I guarantee you that at some stage people will start wearing covering on their ears in support of Trump. Stan sent this to me today.
Oh, for God's sake.
RNC attendees don bandages over their ears in tribute to Trump. So we called it last night. We said it would happen, and just within 24 hours,
these fawning, bootlicking, just, oh my God.
That's almost
was there a spine at that conference at all? Like, even if it was a communal one that they could all take turns on?
It's very interesting. They had the head of the Teamsters there, and the Teamsters are like the biggest and baddest unions in America. And they obviously, the Teamsters always go Democrat. And when the Teamster came out and started talking about workers' rights, everyone was like, yeah. And then they started talking about, being down on business. All of a sudden, the cheers for the Teamsters turned into silence and no more because, it's not a happy fit, is it? But they were there.
Why would they? Oh, that's weird.
And I've got one more thing to share with you. If people aren't aware, I should probably show you. Anyway, you can bring it up if you want to. On our Facebook page right now, and on my Twitter feed are the conditions around looking for a new theme tune for the show. We're going to give away $500 to someone for doing it. Someone sent me a possible. Maybe you call this like a green light thinking, some themes around this to see what we think about it. I'm going to play it for you. Ready? It's only 6 seconds because they're just kind of going, how do you feel about the vibe of this? This is what I got sent today.
Big hairy news, big hairy news, big hairy boys with big hairy news.
I mean, I thought it was a good start, I thought it was a good start, but,
What are you talking about? That is a complete, that's done. We just looped that for 5 minutes. It's job done.
I just think
shut it all down.
The when the level of of themes is already at this.
Big hairy news, big hairy news, big hairy boys with big hairy news.
Then when it's already you're already at Everest. I don't know how anyone's going to compete with that.
The caliber.
I know.
The caliber
amazing,
is so high.
I might actually put that on our button bar just for fun because that would be good to have for when it's really important. So that's, we're doing that. We're giving away and we're going to give people till the end of July. So that means you've basically got 2 weeks to get your entries in. Or if you don't do it, but you know someone who does, then let them know 2 weeks. No real conditions. We've had some just music with no lyrics ones come in. People are doing ones with lyrics. Don't have to be the same lyrics as the last one. Could be something completely different. We're really open up to whatever you want to do. So that's the way we can give money to you. Segue. One of the ways you guys can give money to us, will help support us in what we do, is actually you guys are basically paying for it anyway. So patrons are paying that prize money for the thing. So thanks, patrons. So if you are a patron and you're entering as well, maybe we could either give you the 500 or we could just say, don't pay us for X amount of months and that would equal 500. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But we really do appreciate people coming along, giving us a hand. It is genuinely, this is not our kind of salaried job. Well, it's sort of my almost full-time job, but not our salaried job. It doesn't where we get our money from. But to be really blunt with you, without the patrons, there's no way we would still be doing this today. There's no way, because there absolutely is the patronage that we have and the patrons that help us a little bit each financially certainly pays for a lot of the expenses of the show. And there's just no way. So for all of you guys, and this is not a guilt trip thing, I'm just being blunt with you. For all you guys who watch this, who join in, who's the way you support us is to share our content, to watch our content and tell people about us. The people who are our patrons are the reason you guys can keep doing that. So we all say thanks to the patrons, us in particular. But if you guys just take our content and enjoy it just for what it is, and you can't afford to, or you're not in the position to help out anyway, that's fine. But just be aware, thanks to the patrons, that this is actually even available. So thank you. Yeah, it's very cool. All right, tonight's show, Chewy. There's a bunch of stuff going on. I texted Bomber this afternoon and I said, thank you for Damien Grant. He is just the gift that keeps on giving. He is just the gift to the left that keeps on giving. It's just chef's kiss. There was so much in last night's The Working Group we could have used. It almost looked like that there was a producer, when your producers get in and they tell you how to run a show, and the producer had said, hey, I think we should do, guys, I think Damien, I think you should inject yourself more into conversations and because everything he had a response for, and he started off down the line of carrying water for Donald Trump and violence on the left. And
why?
Yeah, I don't know.
Why?
I don't know. Also, we're going to have a look. There's this so Chewy, this is kind of your bag to look after. The government, Seymour in particular, has basically, I'm paraphrasing, but we'll get the exact terminology when we play the story, has basically given a directive to Pharmac to keep the Treaty of Waitangi out of Pharmac. And what he's saying is race should never be a contributing factor to meds. And the thing is, I actually agree with him. However, at the moment, the problem is not solved because there are definite situations, especially for Māori, where they get underprescribed meds and they have some pretty big key lifespan markers like, well, health markers like lifespan, which shows the current system is not working for them. And what they're trying to do is what they always try and do, and they try and go, in this ideal world, in this utopic world we want, we should not be funding things with having to consider race. And I think we would all agree that in an ideal world we wouldn't. But what you do is you fix the problem first of all, and then you remove the issue. You don't remove the issue first before the problem is fixed. So the thing that they haven't done, and they won't do, and we'll show you some footage shortly, is they haven't gone, there should be no consideration of race at all when it comes to, applying for meds. Okay. So what about all those issues within the health system that involve race, like Māori dying much earlier than anybody else? Tell us how we fix that. No, we don't have an answer to that. But we just know there should be no issue with race when it comes to the medical fraternities. But there is an issue because you can see in the statistics that some races get impacted more than others. But we should never consider race when it comes to prescribing meds. But okay, David, we'll go with that. But let's do it this way. Rather than pulling out the safety net and then saying there should be no issue, how about solving first and then removing an unnecessary safety net? Maybe that would be a long-term thinking, Chewy, other than the short-term thinking, which they're going to do.
No, we're going to deploy David Seymour's favourite tactic. It's called the Atlas shortcut. Basically, you can just say everyone's equal if you just draw an arbitrary line in time and ignore any and all context and history that's led us up to this. Everybody's equal. Everybody's equal now. Because there's no obvious segregation.
Well, because I say so. That's what it is. Because I say so.
It's because I say so. Because we're going to disregard any and all reports that look into cultural factors at all. We're going to disregard any reports that have pointed out decades of systemic issues around race and unfair treatment in the health system, let alone other systems like the judicial system. We're just going to ignore that. So as long as this is predicated on not paying any attention to the past, not paying any attention to evidence that has been produced through research and that sort of thing, if we can just ignore all of that, look at the All Blacks, see that there's some white faces there and some brown faces there, so we're all equal. Based on that, then Pharmac can just throw that out the window.
Yeah,
and I think this is incredibly dangerous, and I think this shows how deep a thinker David Seymour is when it comes to this, and that it is a children's paddling pool level of thought. That he just wants to take this pseudo intellectual high point of going, well, I can't be racist because I don't see color. It's like I don't see a problem because I am choosing to ignore it. Yeah. And I'm choosing to ignore it in a way that benefits one side over the other.
And Chewy, when you finish a very well thought out point like that, we should have some kind of sting to play at the end of it.
Big hairy news, big hairy news, big hairy boys with big hairy news.
I just think like at the end we could do some kind of sting. What I was going to say is we have gone onto the story, actually. We've actually fallen into the story already, by the way. It is exactly what we talked about last week. This government, and particularly David Seymour, be cautious of their language. They use language which sounds appropriate. We shouldn't have to make decisions around medicine based on race. Yeah, we shouldn't. I think many people agree. But currently, there are issues within the medical fraternity where it's obvious that some races are getting lesser service and worse outcomes. So at the moment we do, but people will hear that and say, no funding based on race, no funding based on race. It makes sense. It's like, yeah, but the words may sound okay, all equal, right? But it's how they're going to then implement that policy is what you've got to be aware of. Let's get straight to it from this morning. Daniel Faitaua talking to, it looks like Christopher Hipkins is sucking on a lemon there, doesn't it? About this exact issue.
Ditching the Treaty of Waitangi consideration. Do you agree? I think it's a step backwards. Ultimately, we have to recognise that Māori in New Zealand have disproportionately worse health outcomes compared to non-Māori, and I do think that the whole health system should be focused on doing something about that. I think, ethnicity does play a role here, and we know that some ethnicities, for example, are more prone to some health conditions than others, and I don't think Pharmac should be completely blind to that.
When you hear Mr. Seymour say that drugs should not be going to people based on the need of their ethnic background, is that a fair statement?
Well, I think it should always be based on clinical need, but we have to recognise the fact that there is more clinical need for some drugs with some segments of the population than...
Chippy just exploded there for a second. And this is the thing, right? I think everyone, if you take a step back, you'd agree, right? But what people like Seymour are prepared to do, they are prepared to group people. Like, we can group people by sex, mammograms, prostate things. They are prepared to group people by age, babies have vaccinations or whatever. What he's not prepared to do is group people by race. And that's where this thing we always talk about with Seymour, the racial undertones of everything he talks about. He's happy to group people and provide, let's just stay in the world of medicine for a sector of society, even if not everybody accesses it or uses it. But when it comes to race, he wants to level out or flatten the field. If there is research and evidence that says this group of people need this kind of funding and they're female, fine. This group of people need this kind of funding and they're Māori, no, sorry, can't do it based on race, Chewie.
And I think I hope this is an undertone. There's a sinister undertone in there as well. Is if you turn around and you produce evidence that says, hey, look, Māori Pacific Islanders are more prone to these conditions and that sort of thing. And that could be down to a whole lot of things, and wealth and other inequality factors in there would certainly contribute to them. But when you sit there and you go, well, look, these people are more prone to these conditions, I think often there's this undercurrent of, like, when you talk about evening the playing field and just go, oh, race shouldn't come into it. It's almost like they're sort of going, well, we won't consider these races because we must all acknowledge that genetically they're inferior. And I think that has been more prevalent, back in the pseudoscience days at the turn of last century and all of that sort of stuff. But I think there's still an undercurrent of that whenever they look at these sort of things. The reason that Māori are poor, or the reason that Māori don't live as long or have poorer health outcomes, is just skirting around the fact that someone wants to pull out a medical journal from the 1800s and go, that's because the white race is superior. We're more robust. And I just can't shake that feeling sometimes when we're talking about health issues.
Yeah. Yeah. There seems to be, and I'm thinking about it as we're talking, kind of three ways to do this, right? You can fix the problem, like the issue, whatever it is. Let's say it's Māori dying 10 years younger than anybody. You can fix that through policy and that, and then you can pull out the safety net, right? You can pull out the safety net whilst you have a plan to fix the problem, right? Which I wouldn't necessarily sign on to, but if you pull out the safety net and say, now we're going to do A, B, C, that would be then a plan. Or you can just pull out the safety net. And the latter of those three things is how this government is operating in everything. Pulling out the safety net and then going, shouldn't have to do this, not giving a solution and not solving the problem.
We've eliminated the problem, so this now doesn't have to be a consideration. It's a much stronger position than going, what's the Treaty of Waitangi got to do with Pharmac? Which is essentially what he's saying. Yeah. The Treaty of Waitangi should have everything to do with everything our government does.
What does?
Because that's the agreement. That's what David Seymour wants to erase.
And if you weren't with us last night, fantastic 36 minute, what do you call it? Resource, that's what I'm looking for, as to understanding why what ACT is doing with their treaty principle is null and void. It is not what the treaty says. And the top, official translators, people who are licensed to be translators in the country, say so. something I learned last night, Joe, this is a little bit of a tangent, but then I'll get back to the story, is I didn't know this. In the treaty, when it references New Zealanders, it's talking about Māori. Because in that time, the people they called New Zealanders were the Māori. The other people were called the English or the British or the settlers. So people read that today and they see New Zealanders and they think everybody. But in the treaty, when it was written New Zealanders, they were referencing specifically to Māori. Context matters. Right, let's get to the end of this. There's about 30 seconds to go.
With others. And so I don't think we should be blind to that. I also think that, you know, if you look at the way Pharmac have viewed their relationship in terms of the Treaty of Waitangi, it's been about involving Māori in decisions that affect their healthcare. What could anybody object to about that? I think everybody should be involved in decisions that affect their healthcare.
But I guess the question is, how much of a factor is the treaty, though, when it comes to determining whether or not a drug should be funded?
Well, ultimately, we have a massive disparity in New Zealand. There are poorer health outcomes for Māori than for non-Māori, and I think that all of the different agencies that work in health should do something about that.
There you go. There's the thoughts around. I mean, I know I'm paraphrasing, saying getting rid of the treaty under Pharmac, but maybe because people don't understand or choose not to see or can't fathom that when they're talking about the treaty, they're talking about the agreement, things that were guaranteed when that thing was signed. And, you know, looking after Māori health is all a part of that. And if Māori, this is the same thing again, like I've said it 3 times now and I apologise, but if Māori have got horrific outcomes based on the current medical system, then something needs to change. And all these guys are doing are going, let's get rid of the Māori Health Authority. Let's get rid of it out of Pharmac. But they're not even doing of those 3 options the second one, which is, and we're going to do X. They're going, let's get rid of it because everyone should be the same. Everyone's not the same right now. Everyone's not equal. If we were equal, that means we would be having very similar outcomes, and we're not. So we're not equal. So you saying that we all should be equal and it should be made based on race is as stupid as saying we should be all equal and it shouldn't make decisions based on sex when you're talking about a mammogram or cervical cancer. It's as stupid, shall we?
And I think it's easy to fall into these debate club type questions, right? It's happened right here in the chat. You know, John says personal responsibility goes to a long way to health, regardless of race.
No, it's not. No, it's not, because if it was, then the bad outcomes would be the outlier. If you can, research can show statistically that this is a massive thing within a people group, whether that's female, whether that's brethren, whether that's Māori, whatever it is, then that takes away the personal responsibility, because it's either endemic or it's systemic within that group. So that's wrong. I'm sorry, that's wrong.
Yeah. But it sounds great in a debate setting, right? Because
it sounds great when you're talking about one person. When you're talking about one person,
when you can sit there going, well,
he
if
should stop
someone
smoking.
sits at home, or if everybody sits at home and eats fish and chips for dinner every night and drinks Coke, and that's the choice that they made. That's where the thinking is.
Yeah.
But it doesn't come into, you know, maybe they're sick and they have bronchitis or whatever because their housing is shit, because their landlord's shit. They don't have any insulation. You know, they're so far from a supermarket because all the supermarkets are in the nice part of town. All of these things. And then when they do get sick, do they get treated with respect and honesty from medical professionals? Or do they go, here's another brown face looking for a handy? But that's when we get into it. You know, there are so many stories. And look, I don't mean to bag on our, you know, the people that work in healthcare and that sort of thing, but there is a problem. There is a problem there. And I'm not saying that everybody that works in healthcare is racist, but I'm just saying that the outcomes that people get is not equal. It's able to be researched and shown that there is a disparity, and it shows in how long people stay alive. There's decades worth of difference between Māori lifespan and non-Māori lifespan. And that's because everything that we have built in this country has stacked against them. They don't get the money. They don't get the support. They don't get the good outcomes in the education. They get cracked down on harder by law enforcement and the judicial system. If they get sick, they won't get treated the same as a white person will. All of these sort of things. And then all that this government seems to be able to do is not look at any of those things that have been proven, researched and proven multiple times as, oh, I can solve this really easy. We'll just stop considering it. We'll stop looking at any measure to change it, because fixing that problem sounds big and hard. Whereas if I just remove any consideration for it, it's a problem solved. Job done.
Yeah.
You know, and this is David Seymour's playbook. He loves this debate club stuff. He loves to throw the language at us that we should all be treated equal. And everybody goes, well, yes, everybody should be treated equal.
Yeah,
no, people should be treated equitably.
You got it.
Not equal.
Yeah.
Equity. It's something that he should always get called on. You know, like one of the things I like to bring up when you're talking about being treated equal, right? Over in one of the Scandi countries, and I think Poland maybe does it as well. If you are speeding, your ticket is delivered according to your income.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a millionaire that blows through a school zone, your ticket can be hundreds of thousands of dollars. Whereas someone on a much lower rate might be a couple of hundred. That's what we're talking about. It doesn't have to be equal, but equity is more important than equality.
Yeah, and we all know this graph and this imagery. And since the imagery came out, they've added a couple more images, which are justice and inclusion. But the difference there between, you know, equality and equity. Equality is what he's saying. We give the same to everybody. But as you can see, for one people, giving everything the same is not going to give them the outcome. However, equity, when one person gets double what the other person gets and the third needs nothing, is what gives them all the same outcome, the same result, the result that's going to work for everybody. So, yeah, that's a very, that one's always pretty close to being pulled up when we have these conversations, isn't it, Joey? That's always around that one, that clip.
Yep.
And if anyone's feeling bad about what we've just talked about, we just, you know, because this is what the dog's there for, to make us all feel better. Where's your
croissant?
Where's your dog at the moment?
Upside down in the other room.
Sitting on mum.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah. All right. All right. Hey, we should probably look at the chats and stuff as well, because that was ranty rants. Ranty rants.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so Mr. Arvid has been reminded that David Seymour is the worst example.
I'd forgotten that. Yeah,
it had slipped my mind as well, because obviously I had the day off yesterday as well. Tama here makes a great point. When removing treaty obligations from things like Pharmac, the impact it has on Māori is far worse than the impact that it has on care for non-Māori when obligations are upheld. Yep. And Mara Heaps, I just joined a GP that charged on top of your appointment fee $18 for hospital referrals.
Wow.
18 wins medical, $6 for results analysis, and 24 other charges.
Wow.
How can Māori afford these extra charges? I would find it a different doctor. Jesus.
Yeah, I reckon. Speaking of,
that is something.
I was at the hospital today. I haven't said this on air. Don't need that. You remember last year when I had the gallbladder out about 12 months ago? I had a follow-up today, and I went in for a ultrasound, and no, I'm not pregnant. We double-checked.
Oh, congrats.
And I could see my heart go do-do, 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 because they had a big screen up there. They did the thing around, because your gallbladder's in sort of the centre there. And I was watching it, and it was pretty freaky, but also pretty cool. It's the public health system here for most of the things it needs to do. It's not perfect, especially if you've got like a long-term illness and stuff. I'm completely with you. But for a lot of the things, it's, you know, I walked in, met the lady, had a chat, saw my heart beating away, and walked out. No charge, no nothing. So thanks. Was that Norman Kirk? Health sector was in the 50s. Thanks, Labour, whoever it was.
Cradle to the grave.
Cradle to the grave. All right. Anything else you want to throw up there before we get on to Darlene Tana?
No, let's have a look at this, because I saw a little bit of it on the headlines, and I'd love to see where it's at now.
Yeah, we haven't done a lot with Darlene Tana, and part of that is because there's been like attempted assassinations of a president and lots of news at the moment, but I've been promising you it's always been in the... And it's quite good to talk about this tonight properly, actually, because they've released the summary of the report. So now we can actually not just go, no, I wonder what it's going to say, because we sort of know. But, so let's first of all just have a look at the story of 3 News tonight.
The investigation into embattled MP Darleen Tana found she more likely than not knew of migrant exploitation allegations against her husband's now closed bike business. The Green Party's released a 12-page summary of the investigation, which raised concerns about the lengthy and often unclear explanations Tana offered during the process. Here's Jenna Lynch again.
Bikes and Beyond going bust. The business at the centre of migrant exploitation allegations all shut up. A closed sign hung in the window with contact details for an insolvency firm. Its owner, Christian Hoff-Nielsen, pictured here in March, was nowhere to be found today, with reports he's bailed to Europe.
I don't know nothing.
Sources have told us embattled MP Darlene Tana was at Parliament today with her belongings due to be moved out of her Green Party office as a 12-page summary of the Greens' investigation into her involvement in her husband's business was released.
I'm glad to be in a position now to release that report so that New Zealanders know what it is that we've been dealing with.
It's understood Tana had been preventing the release of the report, which was leaked to Stuff last week. The investigation concludes Tana more likely than not was aware of the allegations and had operational involvement in the business, something Tana disputes.
Do you stand by what you've said about Darlene Tana, that effectively she's a liar?
Yeah, for all intents and purposes, I've made it really clear that she misled. It is mine and Martima's strong view that she misled myself and Martima, and in normal person's language, that would be the equivalent of lying.
You got anything you want to say about that, Joe? I heard noises.
That is a very strong statement with absolutely no political cushioning of it. Chloe's pissed.
Yeah, that basically, she said yes, she's a liar. That's what normal people speak for politicians. Yes, she's a liar. Yeah. All right, we'll keep on going. You can. I think we've managed to pause it on her I'm still pissed face as well.
Tana is refusing to tell the Greens whether or not she intends to remain in Parliament as an independent MP. She told us she was not in a position to talk plans at this stage.
We are still yet to, not only the Green Party, but the public of this country, have a clear, straight-up answer from Darlene Tana about her intentions to stay within Parliament or not. We need to know an answer to that question before we move on.
The next step she's referring to is the Greens deciding whether or not to use the waka jumping law to kick her out of Parliament.
Are you going to waka jump Darlene Tana out?
We don't have plans to do that at this point in time.
The acting Prime Minister says don't do it.
The only people who should be able to drive an elected...
Just a little side note. How the sick in the back of your throat when you hear acting Prime Minister, is it the same for everybody else? Just a little bit in the back of the throat there? Or is it just me? No, just me? Okay.
Member of Parliament out of Parliament is the voters at an election.
First port of call is to make it clear as to whether Darlene intends to try and retain that seat that was won by the Green Party at this most recent election. And if she decides to try and do that, then of course we'll move on to next steps.
Darlene Tana wouldn't do an interview today, but thanked us for our patience while she is, quote, navigating the terrain.
Well, Jenna, this saga is certainly dragging on. What happens next?
We'll have a listen in because Jenna adds a bit more to this as well.
I have just received a text from Darlene Tana in the last little while.
Can I just suggest, there's actually so much I want to talk about for this presentation from 3 News. I'm actually trying to hold my tongue. But, you know, the Apple Pods in the ear, does kind of start to show the budget is a lot less than when it was News Hub. There's a couple of other things I want to share, but we'll get through the story first of all.
While responding to Chloe Swarbrick's statement there about her lying, she has said that she's disappointed by Chloe's comments, that calling her a liar is unprofessional and also, in her view, not reflective of the findings of the report. Still no word from her on whether she intends to stay or go. Now, Darlene Tana has been absent from the Parliament for 124 days. She has been sitting on that report for weeks, so it is not a credible excuse for her to say she has not had enough time to consider her future. When MPs return to this House on Tuesday, the expectation is either Darlene Tana shows up or at least communicates to the party, the public, what her intentions are. Now, if she decides to stay and fight, the Green Party has some major soul-searching to do as to whether it will invoke that waka-jumping legislation to get her out of here.
This is not a problem.
Legislation it called an anti-democratic dead rat.
Yeah, that's exactly why they won't. They won't do that. They won't invoke it. They're one of the parties that's most sort of anti it. Now, before we go on, One News wrote an article about it, which gives a bit more details. So because we've just heard that Darlene Tana was, quote, more likely than not, end quote, involved in the business. One News says, the executive summary of the report by barrister Rachel Burt pointed out the couple were effectively co-founders of the business after buying the existing small-scale business. Darlene described herself as a founder of the business in her CV provided to the Green Party 2022 and talked about the e-bike business as being her business in her candidate profile, Burt said in the report. Because of course she would. Because it's a green qualification, isn't it, that I work in the e-cycle world. It's going to make her look more, her pedigree look more green. While in her interviews with me, Darlene said from the outset the business was Christian's business. I find she was integrally involved from the early days as it developed into a much larger business stretched across multiple stores. I find she became a 50-50 or 50% shareholder and director in recognition of her contribution to the business, and that over these years of 2014 to 2019, the business was a family business with Christian and Darlene heavily involved in all aspects of the business. Burt's investigation also concluded Tana worked both front of house with customers, assisting with basic repairs and sales, and undertook the more back office functions such as payroll, contracts, liaison with suppliers and accounts. And then there's a title that says Captain Chaos. Last little bit. The report noted Tana called her partner Captain Chaos for his inability to structure the operation, and that she brought her planning and implementation skills to bear and created effective systems for the business. So you couldn't be much more involved than the systems I create, the business will use. It concludes that Tana would have been aware of the employee's circumstances and complaints, quote, as she still had some operational involvement in the business. So there's a lot more detail on the quote that TV3 shared, which was more likely than not. So yeah, I mean, that's, I think it's fair to say that's what the report has reported. So we can say that. And my gut tells me the reason that David Seymour, that's right, David, I was thinking Daniel, David Seymour said, oh no, you don't want her to be is because it's an embarrassment for the Greens and will continue to be. However, here's the kicker. If the business has just gone bankrupt, she ain't going anywhere. If for nothing else, the salary. Like honestly, if your partner's business has just gone bankrupt, you got no money. She's not going anywhere. She's not going anywhere.
I think someone that's willing to rip off migrant workers and ignore work visa stuff and that sort of thing to expect her to suddenly get an attack of the integrities and go, I can't take taxpayers' money and just sit in here for the next couple of years. It's not going to happen. She's gonna sit there. I disagree that it is going to hurt the Greens.
Okay.
I think that they have done the right thing at every step here, and I think, as we saw with Chloe, they're not being shy about calling it as they see it.
Yeah.
They are putting this all on her, and they have given the time. They have, they deflected everything while this report was taking as long as it did, and then they've released what they can when they could. The reason that we can't read the whole report is because it's a breach of privacy. That Tana's got to sign off on releasing it. That's not the Greens stopping that.
Yeah, she said yes when she was talking to Mikey Sherman, I think 2 nights ago. But obviously she said yes, but she hasn't actually officially done what she needs to do.
Yeah, because she's a liar. I think the only criticism here that I can really say about the Greens, and this is up to any political party. And we've seen so many examples of it, is political parties' vetting processes are not good enough.
Yeah. Yep, we see that as well today, and it's not a story we're covering because, to be honest, there's other real news going on about the Manurewa potential MP from the National Party ripping off someone for $150,000. Didn't get into Parliament, so it's sort of a bad look vetting system, but it doesn't really impact anything. To be fair, if it was a slow night, we'd probably cover it. It's not a slow night, so yeah. If it's a slow night tomorrow, we might talk about it, Joey, but not now. There's one other thing I want to ask you, and this is now me going back to my kind of desire to figure out how they built their Zoom background. You're a man who knows the internet. You see this frame here that Darlene Tana is in. Does that look like any particular device shape to you?
I guess vaguely of pretty much any cell phone.
It's a I reckon they've used a cell phone, not imagery, but they'll because when you're designing and developing something, you can grab
like a template.
Templates from here, left, right, and it's a cell phone template, because obviously they've built all of this because it's all itemized, but it'll be some kind of template, and they'll have used a cell phone template in front of it to be the place they plant their picture. So no criticism really, I guess. I mean, look at us. We're not doing that kind of stuff, but I just looked at that and thought, no, they've used a cell phone template as their imagery in the background. Anyway. Alrighty. Anything in the chat you want to get to while I load up number 3 for the night?
Malululator. I saw
we still don't know how to say that, do we?
Malulator.
Melulator. All right.
We'll stick a pin in this one. We'll have another crack at it next time. I saw a One News report that Darlene's lawyer said it can be released, and Darlene told Mikey Sherman that they could share it. Where is it then?
Yeah.
Where is it? Yeah. Brother Monk says, in fact, everyone should be commending Chloe on a strong stance on this. I like it because it is so different from what you usually get. I do believe she might need to rein it in a little bit.
We'll see, eh?
Just a little bit. Lest she stray into the territory where the people that don't like her anyway sort of go, see, this is what we're talking about. She's too young. She's too emotional. She's too woman to be in Parliament.
But look, it's also very easy to go, well, what would you call someone who didn't tell the truth? And then it's like, okay, what do you do? I like it too. I like the just being honest about the
honesty.
What they're saying.
It's honesty. It's authentic. It's exactly the things that we point out that Luxon has none of. Whenever he's pissed off against something, it seems like an act, a tough guy act. With Chloe, it's not an act. She's pissed.
Yeah, but
I think rightly so.
Yeah, but you know what they say. Honesty, such a lonely word. Everyone is so untrue. Honestly is hardly ever used, and it's mostly what I need from you. So,
did you come up with that yourself just then?
Yeah.
That's very good.
Top of the dome.
Top of the dome. There's freestyling it.
I found out something today. Speaking of freestyling, by the way, we've just moved off that topic. Rap, is it Rap God? Where Eminem does the fastest rap ever done.
Oh, yes.
Allegedly.
Yep.
I saw an interview with him where he said that was all off the top of the dome, one take. Didn't write it. That was the case. That's amazing. JC and the Pigeon Cats, thank you very much for a very generous super chat there. A chair of a PHO recently told me that one of the benefits of being a co-governance arrangement with local iwi for over 20 years has been the ability to reach Māori who are otherwise disengaged from the Pākehā-centric system. Yeah.
But how can that be true when we know that European systems are the best for everyone?
Yeah,
because everybody in Europe loves them. So it must be the same here, right? We can't possibly learn anything from anybody else ever. They've just got to adapt.
Now, Chewie, you missed out on this a bit last night, so I'll be keen to get your thoughts around this. But I have been chortling happily. Now, the reason I can chortle, I guess, is because I'm not a victim of or a target of this. But the right, and it's in New Zealand as well, and there are some quite prominent right-wing trolls who aren't necessarily seen as trolls. They're seen as things like lobby groups and that kind of stuff, who are jumping on the American bandwagon at the moment. I myself, Chewie, in my Twitter feed have someone personally blaming me for Donald Trump's assassination attempt. This is what you get
you
when
did set it all in motion.
No, I purchased the gun for
pulling
them.
the puppet strings.
Yeah.
Behind the curtain.
And I said this last night when someone said to me, this is what happens when you do X, Y, Z. And then we found out it was a Republican shooter, and the person deleted their comment off my Twitter feed. But I mean, look, it's as simple as this, yeah? Let me just say it as simple as this. And this does lead into the working group with Damien Grant last night as well, because that was their conversation. Using phrases like bullseye or something like that, yes, an unhinged person could get that wrong. And Mr. Biden's done that once. Calling a whole sector of the political sphere pedophiles, groomers, baby killers, do you not think to an unhinged person that is also, well, we got to get rid of the pedos, and that's been going on for 9 years. So stop. I mean, to be honest, I'm like, TVNZ, why did you apologize for like using the salt gun towards that Trump doll? I mean, come on. If you want to see this taken to the other extreme that I'm putting out there now, go watch Destiny on Piers Morgan. Destiny was sitting there and going, he basically made the point, he refused to disavow the shooter. And the reason he was doing that is obviously not because he was supporting the shooter. He realized he was in a situation in a show with fucking Dave Rubin, amongst other people, sitting and framing the issue like they always do. You know, we've talked about this with the Israel-Gaza thing. When the left get on, they constantly are asked, do you disavow Hamas? When the right come on, they've never asked to disavow, do you disavow the IDF bombing hospitals? And this thing's kind of happening again in this situation. And Destiny took a stance where he wasn't going to. And what I took from it was going, you guys, this is your game. I'm not going to play your game. So no, I'm not going to do that. Now, I don't think he wasn't doing it in support, obviously, but he was doing it as a way to show that the framing that they come up with puts this slant on it. Well, this is a long-winded lead into this story coming out today, that now you're getting, and one of the points we made last night, Chewie, it was actually Piers Morgan again, because he's popping up on my feed now. He goes, how the left are calling Trump Hitler. And he showed like a bunch of podcasters and a bunch of, announcers saying such and such reports, like no one with any power or influence, saying things like he used the language of Hitler, he is Hitler, this kind of stuff. And then I showed a clip of...
I've never said that Trump's like Hitler because I've seen no proof that Trump's a frustrated artist.
And then I showed a clip of all the people on the right being politicians and people in power saying the things that I've just referenced, baby killers, murderers, pedos, that kind of stuff. Well, now the right's going one step further through people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, and now they're actually blaming journalists for literally causing the assassination.
Classic.
You'll enjoy this and you'll hate it all at the same time.
Trump, what do you think of his choice of J.D. Vance as vice president?
Very excited. I was the first member of Congress to endorse J.D. Vance when he was running for Senate. And I vetted him pretty closely, of course, because I'm one of those strong President Trump supporters.
This is a man who compared him to Hitler, though. Isn't that concerning?
Let me finish. I vetted him on his statements, his articles he'd written.
And the other thing the right will do, I mean, I'll just say politicians will do, I'm not going to pigeonhole just the right. The other thing that you'll see often is once they get to a point where they get challenged beyond reproach, they run away. And they don't run away by literally running away. They basically turn the person asking the questions into the demon and then accuse them of being a demon, and why would I answer any demon's questions? So that's where they go. right? They basically run away by stopping the conversation, by blaming the person asking the questions because they're a demon.
And of course, you know, JD's an American. He can change his mind. And what changed his mind is he watched President Trump in his first presidency. And it was the policies and the decisions President Trump made in his first 4 years that changed his mind. And, you know, I really respect that. And I think Americans have the right to change their mind, especially based on someone's actions, not their words. And so when people are judging J.D. Vance, I think they can also look to see that we can watch his actions. And as a senator, I'm really proud of him. I'm proud of the legislation that he's voted on. I'm proud of the work that he's done on the committees he serves on. And I'm really excited President Trump picked him.
So Vance, he said that the UK could be the first Islamist country with nuclear weapons under the new Labour government. Doesn't that paint a sour picture for relations with the UK?
Well, let's talk about the words of the Democrats and Joe Biden that have also labeled
this
President
is the start
Trump
of the
as a
runaway.
fascist, labeled all of us as Nazis and Hitler, completely lied, demonizing him so much so that a young man, a 20-year-old, which is hard to imagine, actually climbed onto a roof and tried to murder President Trump.
You said that the Democrats wanted the shooting of Trump to happen.
Let's talk about people like you.
Where's your evidence
let's talk
of
about
that?
people like you
But where's your
that
evidence of those
demonize
claims?
people like me, President Trump. You know, I have some of the most highest amount of death threats because of people like you, because you choose to only take certain words.
You choose to turn on a microphone and a camera and allow me to say what I want to say. And because of that, I get death threats
from people. And then that's what you want to report. Shame on you. Shame on you.
But
Because
where's your evidence?
No. You're the problem. And where's this woman from?
The Times.
You're
London.
from the Times? Okay, you're ridiculous. And you're the problem in our country. You lie about people like me. This is the first time you've ever talked to me. I want you to know, I'm a regular person like you. I'm also a mom. I have 3 kids. And we have to put up with the most unreal amount of bullshit because of little liars like you that take your job and turn it into political activism. Your job is the press. You should report the news, not lie. No, not lie about it. You don't get to ask any more questions. I'm done with you.
Run away.
Because you're the cause. You're
One
the
more
cause
thing. You
of
call
our
the
country.
Democrats.
And she gets to
you're
end the
cause of our
conversation on the
country
point
being
she
divided.
wants.
You're the cause of our country being divided. You're the cause of President Trump
You're the
almost
cause.
being assassinated.
You're the cause of the country being divided. I think we saw that photo. She is probably a journalist in her 20s. You're the cause of the country being divided.
You're the cause of everything wrong
where's
in
your
America.
evidence?
Everything.
No, you're done. You're done. Yeah, go back.
Thank
Go
you.
back.
Everything. You're the cause of everything. And let me just also say, people are talking about destiny in the chat. I'm not necessarily. I'm saying in that one instance, the point that he was making. Remember, we sometimes have agreed with points that some pretty far right people have said once in a blue moon, and Chewy always goes, "Oh, it feels wrong saying this." And the point he was making in the conversation, and yeah, he did say unhinged stuff in a Twitter rant that he put out there, or a YouTube feed he put out there. But in that instance, he wasn't prepared to be drawn into the game of the left having to denounce everything that someone on the left has done that's terrible. But although this shooter wasn't on the left, but the right's never asked the same question. And that's my point of observation. Nothing to do with Destiny's past and what else he's done. That's it. Chewy.
I've seen Marjorie Taylor Greene use that same template with other reporters. It's almost just move for move, right? She is happy to answer questions as long as she gets the narrative. The single moment that there's any sort of pushback, she goes all PTA mum and goes, no, you're done. You've done all of this. She is a dreadful person that no one should interview ever again. And then she'll be going, well, why is the press not asking my opinion? As far as JD Vance goes, man, like dreadful person again. And like, it probably goes without saying that, Trump's vice president pick is an absolute demon. But what I found out about him is that his run for Senate was bankrolled by one of New Zealand's greatest sons, Peter Thiel.
Yeah.
Yeah, famous. And it's so funny with these guys, with these Republicans, that they all used to be anti-government libertarians. Wealthy, anti-government, well-connected anti-government libertarians. And now they've all decided that they're Republicans and they want to be part of the government.
Yeah.
This reminds me of something a little bit close to home, doesn't it?
Well, that's what we've been asking.
Nominal libertarian that's well connected and well funded.
What we've been asking for quite a long time, you know. It's like is like the Atlas Network or various kind of lobby groups testing right now things in New Zealand that are going to translate to the American election later on. Although, you know, it's you know, I've pulled back by 5%. I think on Monday night we said it's over. I don't think it's necessarily over. I think if Joe Biden says it's 100% over now, I think that's gone. And maybe the only chance for the Democrats, to be honest, is if Kamala gets in there and she's really able to play that women's rights, you know, abortion, women's health card. I can't see any other way that the Dems can win. And that may not win. I'm just saying. But that might be the only way to go. And to be honest, if you were Biden now, surely you'd go, crap. You know, it's a horrible way to look at it, but it's also true. And I think because most people are saying something similar, to say that this thing for Trump has been the golden ticket to get him into the White House, you know, is a weird and pretty crass way to think about a horrific event, but it's also probably true. And how do you negate that? You got to bring some kind of difference. How do you bring some kind of difference? It's not with Joe Biden, not at all. So if I was Joe Biden, I'd be going like, if he has the cognitive ability to think clearly, go like even if he thought I'm the best here because of what's happened, he's likely to lose. Give it to someone else. Give it to Kamala and see what happens. That's what I would be thinking, Chewy. Just thoughts.
Yeah. I don't know. I look at the state of things over in the US and I see like, you know, Elon Musk is donating, what is it, $45 million a month to Trump's campaign until the election.
Oh, really?
That got announced today.
Oh.
He tweeted, skated, fucking splooged his load all over his X or whatever the kids call it these days, saying that Trump is the toughest president since was it Roosevelt? Who was the guy that got shot? Teddy Roosevelt got shot doing a speech. That's the analogy that they're trying to draw. They are ignoring like truly great Republican leaders like Eisenhower. We can't possibly call back to Eisenhower because at that point the company tax rate was something like 90%. You know, you can't possibly do that. But we'll go back to Teddy Roosevelt because he got shot during a speech, and he's a great president, and that's as deep as the thinking goes. But I think these guys lining up to support Trump now is like they're just spineless bootlickers, all lining up to get their handouts that they were denied to poor people. But these guys with corporate money, they love it. They want more. That's the only place that socialism exists in the US is the military and corporate America.
Just looking at this assassination attempt of Teddy Roosevelt, I mean, probably one of the things that goes to show is the danger today with guns versus then. Afterwards, probes with an X-ray showed that the bullet had lodged in Roosevelt's chest muscle, but did not penetrate pleuria, since doctors concluded that it would have less dangerous to leave it in place than attempt to remove it. So he carried the bullet with him for the rest of his life. I mean, I can't think of many weapons today that would be low enough power to be defeated by a muscle. So obviously that was in 1912. So
if I can recall, it had a cigarette case in his notebook, in his pocket. So that took some of the sting out of it. But the fact is, like, someone tried to kill him, and he continued doing a speech for about an hour.
Oh, real?
Like it's like trying to compare Trump to Teddy Roosevelt is fucking laughable.
Yeah,
to me.
As an experienced hunter and anatomist, Roosevelt correctly concluded that since he was not coughing blood, the bullet had not reached his lung. He declined suggestions to go to the hospital immediately. Instead, he delivered his scheduled speech. His opening comments to the gathered crowd were, "Friends, I shall ask you to be as quiet as possible. I don't know whether you fully understand that I have just been shot, but it takes more than that to kill a bull moose." That's hard ass, bro. That's fully hard ass.
But look, when it comes to the Trump stuff, like the Republicans have clearly rallied behind their guy.
Yeah.
And they're pulling everything that has come out of this assassination attempt, the raised fists, the bandages on the ears, which is still one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. The fact that he went fight, fight, fight. You know, they're not focusing on the fact that he wanted to go back for his shows, but yeah, I think those things you couldn't buy better imagery or slogans going into an election.
Yeah,
it's going to make it very, very hard. And we know, as with any election, there are political tragics like us all around the world that will look at policy and look at behavior and look at actions and look at context and history. And there are people that will go, you know what? He hates the guys that I hate, and that photo in the paper was fucking baller. So I'm gonna vote for him.
I said to someone today, when tragic things happen, you know, the person in power, or the person that potentially happens to, gets rallied around. You think about John Key with the Christchurch quake, big 50 plus 60% approval. Jacinda with the with COVID. You think about George W. Bush in Iraq. You know that he's still that second election, which I think is what 2004, or did he win 2008? 2000, whichever one it was, is the only time since the 1990s that Republicans have won the majority vote. You know, what do they call it? They got more votes overall. That's the only time, and it's because of the war. And I actually think that for people, as you're pointing to, Chewy, who aren't like us, who aren't political tragics, they will rally around Trump from this assassination attempt, and he'll see a bump for it. So, but it's probably a good time to swing into the next part of the conversation. First of all, just thank you for the super chat, Caleb. It's very generous. It feels like the right have lost counterculture status and become mainstream, while the left has begun its new counterculture phase in the culture popularity with this. Leftists are getting fired up.
We've always been fired up. Always been counterculture. Yeah. I hope so. Like, I hope people in the States realize what's at stake for them. This Project 2025 stuff is just real scary business.
Yeah, it's scary business for people who disagree with it, but for the right, the people who are voting for Trump,
it's a
wet dream.
Yeah,
it's a wet dream. All right, now listen, let's get to our our favorite thing.
The main event.
We're just going to play these. There's about 2-minute clips. This first one is Damien Grant, again, as we were saying, carrying water for the GOP, carrying water for Donald Trump, and you've got to kind of ask why.
God, you and Simon Wilson are such full of nonsense. You
I haven't said a word yet.
Yes, you have.
Well,
you started off this thing with a tissue of lies. You go back and you look at the way that the Democrats have characterized Donald Trump over the last 3 or 4 years. Joe Biden started his presidency with the idea that he had to get involved because Donald Trump said.
Do we remember the whole pedophiles in the bottom of the pizza basement? You know, like this is the thing I'm saying. It's so far and away more on the right than the left. And because this event has happened to Trump, the right are able to use it, they think, to paint the left as the ones who are more unhinged and violent. And it's not the case. It's not the case.
Said that there were good people on both sides creating the lie that Donald Trump was there defending neo-Nazis when he wasn't. He was defending those people who wanted to defend the Confederate statues. They go around and saying that Donald
otherwise
Trump
known as
democracy and he must be stopped at all sides. Donald Trump said that there would be a bloodbath and that was deliberately misconstrued to say that if he wasn't re-elected there would be a bloodbath, when any objective reading of what he was said is Donald Trump was talking about the automotive industry. He was talking about economic carnage. There was recently an image of Donald Trump and Adolf Hitler's face merged.
But that's so stupid, because when Biden was talking about putting a bullseye in him, he was so obviously not talking about a gun, yet they're using that as Biden, do you denounce those sayings? So what he's saying is Trump's allowed to use, metaphor and stuff that sounds violent, but it's not. But when Biden doesn't even do it, he's now getting chastised for it. So actually, he's undermining his own argument here on some level.
I think it was on the New Republic or some other such publication, the Democrats in the United States have been pushing a narrative for months, if not years, that Donald Trump is an existential threat to democracy. They have raised the level of discourse.
Which he is. He is.
Course in that country. Now, that doesn't mean that the Democrats are responsible, but to go around...
I love it how he goes round and he's like you say, Chewy, he's walking right up to that line, making sure everyone's aware. We can, if we want to, we can blame the Democrats. But no, we're not saying we blame the Democrats, but they did all these things that caused this problem. But we're not blaming them, but they did all these things that could have but we're not blaming them. It's so disingenuous. This is why I said to Bomber today, Damien Grant for the left is just the gift that keeps on giving and giving and giving.
And claim, Mr. Wilson, that somehow this was a fault of the Republicans, that they are somehow hypocritical is absolute nonsense.
Oh, come on.
Oh, come on what? Go on, come on what? And what? And what have I said? And what have I said?
His insurrection of the 6th.
And what have I said?
His call for the vermin, the feral, the communists.
And what have I just said? And the list of things, I'm not here defending the Republicans. I am saying that...
Well, you basically are. You might not want to look like you are, but you are.
You cannot turn around and denounce the Republicans of hypocrisy when you blatantly ignore the stuff and the lies that have been said on your sides.
Have we done an insurrection? Did we launch an insurrection on January the 6th?
You go around and you claim on this very podcast...
He is a fascist. He's an orange fascist. And he is.
Claim he is
because what they want to do with Project 2025 is to take over every arm and every branch of the bureaucratic establishment.
What is a fascist?
It's a cult. It's a cult. It's a cult.
Define what are the economic...
cult.
What are the cult? What is the economic characteristics of fascism?
National socialism.
Exactly. And what is the second word of that? Socialism. If you want to define fascism,
dummy.
I know.
Oh,
he keeps on giving.
He
keeps on giving.
Driving the organs of the government. Donald Trump is not a fascist, and you are spreading lies.
He is. Follow-up question.
You are part of the problem.
In January...
There you go. And I cut that bit off. Bomber, that's where Bomber goes, you're a part of the problem. Bomber's like, oh yeah, so I loaded the gun. I see something like that. So it's just, I mean, so if it's true, so this is the other thing. If some of the things that people are saying are true, authoritarian, be a dictator for a day, fascistic, underleanings, admiring all the authoritarians around the world, right? If all those things are true and people are saying it about Donald Trump, and then an unhinged person uses those things being said about Trump to commit a horrendous act, okay, we'll leave that there. What about all the things that the right say about the left that aren't true? Pedophiles, drinking babies' blood, basement of pizzerias, Pizzagate, baby killers, murderers, evil. And that leads to someone like Paul Pelosi being attacked with a hammer based on things that aren't true. I'm not stupid enough to fall for this, Chewy. You're not stupid enough to fall for this. I suspect no one watching is stupid enough to fall for this. The question is there enough people out there who are stupid enough to fall for this that'll drive their vote to Donald Trump, in America, that is?
Damien Grant, twice convicted fraudster, is not a student of history. Like, he might cry out, like, I love it when they go full debate club. Define fascism for me. Define fascism for me. It's authoritarian leadership. It's generally aimed towards a one-party state with full control over the media, over industry. They tend to focus power into a few corporations or a few organizations. And I think if you look at fascist leaders of the past, and this is why that comparison gets made, I personally wouldn't lump Trump with Hitler, but I'd very much lump him with Benito Mussolini. There's a lot of parallels there.
Oh, but it's okay to identify the times he's used rhetoric, like calling people vermin, and that have been said by themes that have been used by, words that have been written by Hitler, that's fine, because if they have been said by and written by, you can say this is the language of Hitler. This is the language of Hitler.
He's othered groups. He's used the threat of an outside enemy. There's always an outside enemy. That's always used as a way to consolidate power. Is because if I don't do it, then this outside factor is, they're sending rapists up from Mexico. Our borders are overrun. The Chinese are flooding our country with drugs and that sort of thing. Suspiciously very little about Russia, but there you go. Draw your own parallels there. There's a reason people keep on circling around and going, even if they're not pointing at Trump and going, oh, he's an orange Hitler. There's enough warning signs of where this could go. And I think just overall, the erosions of protections that the US built into their system that have been systemically chipped away at over the last 40 years.
Yeah.
And I think because of their religious makeup, because of how nationalistic they are, because of their racial background in the US, they are prone, if they don't have those protections there, if they don't have politicians that look at the democratic process of something to be proud of rather than to get around, the fear of the US sliding into a fascist state. There's a reason that people keep on drawing these parallels, because they're there.
Yeah.
And I think if you can't defend that position, if someone like Damien Grant can turn around and go, well, we'll define it. Show me why. If you can't turn around and go, here's a bunch of examples. This is why. Calmly, reasoned, this is why I think this way. This is why I'm worried.
Perfect transition, sir. I know how you like to predict things that are coming, because calm, rational is a bit of the theme of the next conversation. It is talking about the right owning political violence, right? This is what this, with friend of the show, Simon Wilson, in here as well. Let's have a look.
This isn't an equivalent situation. This isn't like everybody on.
Don't you feel calm
on both sides in America?
Don't you just feel calm by his voice? Calm. And
it's like a butter had a voice.
And politics is all doing the same things, and it just happens to be it's the right sometimes, the left sometimes. Political violence in America, 75% of the major political violence in America is from the right. Only 4% is from the left, and the rest of it is undetermined.
Where did that data come from?
Let me come back to that. We've been living with an America where the husband of the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Paul Pelosi, was attacked with a hammer by a man who was trying to kill his wife, Nancy Pelosi. Where the governor of Michigan was lucky not to be kidnapped. Where 1 in 6 election officials report having death threats at them, and this is in the context where they've had a president, Trump, who said, maybe we can just shoot them in the legs, talking about Black Lives Matter, where he did clearly encourage an insurrection, an armed insurrection against the Capitol on January 6, 2021. And in the context of that, there were people there with weapons who wanted, as you said earlier, to kill the Vice President and maybe any other Congress members they found. That is the America that has been we've had to confront as citizens of the world, and we don't get a vote in their election. It has come from the right. The violence against migrants in America. Trump's own people have revealed that he was quite keen on going to war with Mexico, bombing Mexico. The violence against women through the abortion, really strict abortion rules that they've got there now. The incredible irony that because of the Republicans, the gun that nearly killed Trump is not banned, despite efforts from Democrats to ban it. It's not banned because of Republicans. They live with what I read was the daily trauma of living in a bully's paradise, and I think that's a really good phrase. And, to argue that it's just the same on both sides, it's Clearly not, and clearly dangerous.
No, hold on. You made a statement. 75% of the political violence in the United States come from the right. Where did
I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me, but I didn't.
So
make it up.
this would be a bit of a post-truthiness. If you're going to come out there and you're going to make it.
So Damien Grant is saying that Simon Wilson is not telling the truth. We'll get to that at the end of this clip. It's only got about 30 seconds to go, and this is the point, Chewy, about the calming down. Have a listen.
Of a post-truthiness. If you're going to come out there and you're going to make a statement like that, Simon, 75% of the violence in the United States comes from right-wing sources. That is an audacious claim, and I want to know where you get it from, because it doesn't ring true.
I don't know why you think it doesn't ring true, but I also want to ask something else. Please don't shout like that. We can have the debate about violence in politics without shouting about it all.
Simon, that's not how we get ratings.
Follow-up question.
Stupid joke, didn't make sense. Very good point made by Simon Wilson. Now, Chewy, I would like to show you some research, because we do like to bring receipts. Research done by the ADL, it is 2021, Murder and Extremism in the United States 2021. I'll just read you one paragraph. Over the past decade, right-wing extremists have committed the majority of extremist-related killings in all years but one, 2016, the year of the shooting spree at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, Florida, by a person motivated by Islamist extremism. Of the 443 people killed at the hands of extremists over that 10-year period, 333, or 75%, were killed by right-wing extremists. So maybe Simon Wilson didn't have his fingertips to back it up. Old mate Damien Grant was basically saying, so you're full of shit. There it is, sir. Chewy.
Oh, you should send that to Bomber. Yeah. Like, it's plain to see. Like, I didn't see a left-wing storming of the Capitol.
Yeah. During
Trump's presidency, I saw protest. I didn't see insurrection. You know?
Someone's, Kevin Sorbo, who played Hercules, he said on his Twitter feed today something like, there was an assassination attempt, and what didn't you see? You didn't see right-wingers burning things down, and da-da-da-da-da. And I just tweeted out and say, no, they save that when they lose an election because of what you're saying.
Yeah, there's more rioting done by hockey fans in the US than there is over this week. There's been a few large ones, and they're mainly around... in Seattle, they had a few riots and stuff like that from left-wing causes, like the G20 and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's not the same. The propensity for violence is just not comparable between the two sides of the argument. I don't get it. Like, I understand that Damien Grant's a right-winger, but there's surely... I'm just expecting him to have at least a little bit of the intellectual honesty to not go, it's a right-wing cause, therefore I support it.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's times where you go, because there's certainly left-wing stuff that I look at and I go, nah, I can't bridge that gap between where you are and I am. I don't agree. And I'll voice that. But there's nothing weirder to me than a New Zealander looking at Trump and going, yep, this is the guy that I think. I just can't get there. I don't see it. I try to see where people come from, and I just can't see a New Zealand Trump supporter. And I'm not saying that Damien's necessarily a Trump supporter, but I just can't see how they get there. He goes against everything I think most New Zealanders stand for. Like, we don't like people who brag or big themselves up just straight away. This, like I said on the show the other day, if someone voices a strong opinion, we all turn to that person and we tell them to fucking calm down a little bit. It's embarrassing. He's very much a product of America, but and I think of this when I look at the Republican Party, right? Again, there's some classic Republicans through time that are I always go back to Eisenhower. He was a Republican. he wouldn't even recognise the Republican Party of today. It's mental. Even when you look at some of the policies that Nixon had in play. Nixon, famously not a great guy, but his Republican Party, unrecognisable to these guys. Even Reagan's Republican Party, that set all of this in motion, would be unrecognisable to today's Republican Party. So these guys have, and this is why I say they don't have spines. They've gone back on every tenet of their belief, of their integrity, just to be the winner. They've put up someone who they think can win at all costs. They sit there and they say that they're Christian and they value Christian values, and they pick Trump.
Yeah.
And people that support him, it's a wide church, and a lot of them, like, you're poor and you think Trump speaks for you. Trump wouldn't cross the road to piss on you if you're on fire. He wouldn't want you within 10 feet of him. Why do you think he's your guy?
Yeah,
it's just so baffling to me.
Whilst we've been broadcasting, I've had a few people send me a couple of tweets. Let me put one up just to say, you're saying about who are these guys, what are they doing? I don't know who this person is, person called Rick, but it's not a cult. It's the latest trend at the RNC. Donald Trump supporters are wearing fake bandages on their right ear after he survived the assassination attempt. Everybody in the world is going to be wearing these pretty soon. One man wearing a bandage tells Ed O'Keefe on the convention floor from CBS News.
Everyone in the world. Everyone, and like, he's voiced that opinion out loud to another person. Like, everyone in the world is going to be wearing one of these.
So it's a cult. I mean,
I don't think you'll see everyone in that building that he's in wearing one.
Let's have a look at some of the chats that have been coming. Thanks for your thoughts. Thanks for your super chat there, Peter. I think the only person who could persuade Biden to stand aside is Obama. I mean, the more we're hearing from people who know the inner workings, the more we are hearing people say that Biden's quite arrogant and quite pompous. I mean, we don't see that from this side necessarily, and actually maybe not even Obama. Who knows?
I said something like this a few weeks ago when we first started talking about this. You are not a normal person when you get to that level of contesting politics in the US. You have to be the level of self-belief, arrogant and pompous, sure. Just, you'd have to be so driven and so 100% believing that you're the right person for the job.
Yeah.
And how do you derail that? He's going to see it himself. Old people, quite leaving the fact that he's a high-level politician that has spent most of his life trying to get to that position. He's also old, and we all know how stubborn old people are.
Yeah.
So there's that as well. There's no way that he's standing aside, unless the stress of it blows his heart up or something like that.
Well,
but
there's one other thing. There's one other thing to work out, and I did some research on this today. The average life expectancy in the US at the moment for a white male is 74 years old, which feels a lot younger than here, because of course America lost 2 years off their life expectancy through COVID. Remember, New Zealand was one of about 3 or 4 countries that life expectancy went up. The average life expectancy for a Caucasian male is about 74 in the US. That means Trump is well within the margin of error of not surviving it the next 4 years. And the point that we want to keep an eye on is that means J.D. Vance is president. We played clips last night, Chewie, you weren't here, about what he thinks of things like abortion. And I think he used the word inconvenience. When someone gets raped and gets pregnant, to abort the baby because they're an inconvenience. I'm pretty sure that's the term they use. So
Jesus.
So just got to be aware of that. Cookie Nick, the truant, $2 super chat. Thank you for your super chat. Appreciate that. Mr. Arviz, did you know that Damien Grant is a twice convicted fraudster for $5 super chat? Thank you for that. Peter says, this is like blaming Jodie Foster for Reagan. Thank you for the super chat. And Kiwi Bird for $5. Thank you for the super chat. Fascism is a far-right authoritarian, ultra-nationalist political ideology and movement. That's Trump.
So there we go. Yeah, Trump's an authoritarian. He speaks that way. He doesn't believe in anything but pure executive power. You know, you've seen that through how much he pushes back against a lot of the structure of the US government. Ultra-nationalist. I don't believe that necessarily Trump is an ultra-nationalist. I don't think he believes in the country.
But
he's not doing it for
plays,
country.
But he plays the role of one. He plays
Yes.
the role of an ultra-nationalist.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's a very powerful tool.
Yeah.
Because a lot of Americans are, America first. And that's a slogan that has an interesting history in the US about the different groups that have used it. And he was quite happy to use it. And I think any sane political analyst over there would go, we can't use America first because it's literally been used by American Nazis.
Yeah.
And he goes, nah, I'm going to use it. So,
Yeah.
That's where they're at.
All right, team. I had some requests for the dog. Obviously, we got to a bit of a heavy part of the show, so that's fine. We'll get that in there. So today is Wednesday. Tomorrow is Thursday. We will be back again tomorrow, I guess, for a live show. I'm just thinking. I'm thinking on the internet. You're watching me think, guys. I know it's a scary thing, but that's what's happening right now. So yeah, I think that's us for tonight. What are we at?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we got 4 more minutes to fill up our 90-minute hour. Sure. but this song's 2.5, so maybe we'll start with that.
And pick up the news, big hairy style, keeping it loose. New Zealand, where the politics play, they bring the truth every single day. Talking about the mess all over the land. They shine a light with a mic in their hand. No time for cheese, just facts straight up. Plan and chew, never backing up. From the Cape to Bluff, no place too far. They expose the truth and raise the bar. Politicians tremble at their mighty voice. Pat and chew, they'll make the right choice.
All right, team, that's us. Remember, if you want to be a part of the scrolling credits, patreon.com/Big Hairy News. If you want to help us replace this theme song, then go to our Facebook page, go to my Twitter page to get all the conditions to help us replace it. Maybe win yourself $500. That's it for me, Chewy. Anything to finish off with, my friend?
No, that is it for me. Be nice to each other. Be the energy you want to be in the world, but always, always fight fascism.
And we will see you tomorrow night from 9 p.m. for another edition of Big Hairy News. Hooroo.
Cheers, fam.
Big hairy news, big hairy news, big hairy boys with big hairy news.